Hello, everybody. James Harcourt here. I'm an electronic music artist from the UK. I run Zero9 Music, and you're listening to the Liverpool Connection podcast.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Liverpool Connection podcast. This is my music and football episode where I bring on a DJ, producer, musician to talk about football and music. Today I've got an incredible artist that I have got many of his tracks. He's had tracks out on Syncopat, Renaissance, some of History's Siamese, and his own label, Zero9. I welcome to the podcast James Harcourt. He's also an Arsenal supporter, so yeah, there might be some good banter today because I'm feeling top of the league so far. But
Yeah.
James, welcome to the pod, mate.
Hi. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me on.
Do you want to talk footy first or music?
Yeah, talk a bit of football. I mean, I was going to say if we had this call 2 weeks ago, things were not looking so good for Arsenal. It's just like that last weekend, things went our way a little bit. But up to then, Liverpool winning every single game, and we were stuttering a bit. It's just funny how things can change so quickly in the league.
That's the Premier League, though, isn't it? I mean, anybody can beat anybody on any given day, and I think this silliness that's around like Liverpool at the moment is getting on my nerves. Like, if you lose one game, like that's it. You've lost the league. Like, and this is punditry again that try and like put out this whole like we've wasted 440 million on Verts and Frimpong and all this, and it's 6 games in. It's just ridiculous, and the same for Arsenal as well.
Yeah, knee-jerk reactions all over the show. It's unbelievable, man.
But it sells. That's the thing, You have these reaction. It's reactionary.
Yeah.
This is what people like, and I don't quite understand it. I really don't.
No, it's infuriating, and yeah, it's all Arsenal are particularly bad with it. You win a game, it's like a lot of the big Arsenal pundits are, it's the analysis just switches completely. If there's one good weekend, it's like, oh yeah, Arteta's looking like a tactical genius, and he's the shrewd business in the summer. Then 2 games lost on the spin, it's like, oh, suddenly, he's wasted money. It's like they've spent the most out of anyone in the league. They've wasted all the money. It's just so stupid, man. And like, you've got to give players time as well. Some players gel immediately. Like Thierry Henry I saw his first game. He just wasn't in the game at all. Like a year later, people are talking about him. He's a regular, and then he became one of the best players at the club. I mean, I've never played obviously at a high level, but when I play football, you know that, like, particularly when it comes to 11-a-side, you can't influence the whole game. You've not always got total control. You can't always show your best in every single game, particularly straight off the bat. So I'm always willing to give players time, and a chance to come good.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to. I mean, I remember when Klopp brought in Robertson and Fabinho, it took them 6 months to get up to speed with the Premier League. And I think that's the issue with Vert, is he just needs to get up to speed. I mean, yeah, he comes from Germany, and Germany on a flight, it's an hour away from the UK, but it's a different country, and it's different tactics, and it's different, you're next to somebody that you don't know. He was at Leverkusen for a while. I mean, Frimpong at least is with him, but, I looked at his stats the other day, and he's created the most assists, like stat-wise, but that's not the narrative that people are going with. He's £116 million flop. It's ridiculous. And this is coming from so-called Liverpool fans. I mean, it on Twitter, it's toxic. If you lose a game,
I've dodged Twitter now. I'm off X because that's the most toxic of the lot. I've actually stopped using Facebook quite a lot because that's pretty bad now. But
yeah. It seems like every little media place you go on, I mean, everybody can be a keyboard warrior, and have their say, but it's just ridiculous. I mean, I heard slot out. I'm going, what planet?
It's madness, isn't it? Yeah, it's madness.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a few people say the same thing about Mikel Arteta, and there are some doubts. So, I mean, I try to see all the points of view, I mean, with Liverpool, it's ridiculous. The guy's just won the title, and they've spent well. I mean, Isak, Arsenal wanted that guy in a big, big way, right? And he will come good. You know, they're doing it at Arsenal with Victor Gyökeres. I mean, he's come from a league which is slower paced league, probably playing against opposition that's nowhere near as intense as what we've got here. You know, it's like the Premier League games are tough, man. Well, I like that game against Newcastle. I'm sure it was just as hard for Liverpool. That's a difficult place to go. And people are over analysing Gyökeres as if he's been at the club for years and he's always played in the Premier League. He's already scored 3 goals, but it's like, oh, he hasn't scored in 3 games. You know, he's struggling to adapt to. It's like, it's just bullshit, and he knows it as well. I think. I think some of these players don't get affected by it because they just know better. You know, they probably know that it's like like you say, it sells, doesn't it? If you can just whip up a crisis of some kind, people are more interested in that.
Yeah.
Than,
Well, I mean, the whole thing with Salah as well. You know, it's just ridiculous. The man for the last 7, 8 seasons has done absolutely amazing, and people are questioning him in the first 6 games because he's not the Mo Salah of last season. Once he gets in the groove, I mean, again, he's playing with a different front three, and you know, again, we've lost Diego, which has to affect the players. I'm sorry, it does. When you go into the training ground and you don't see one of your best mates, or you're sat in the dressing room, and you know there's Diego's little,
yeah.
you know, that's got to like get you every single time. For them to put their boots on, I applaud them because I don't think I could do it.
I think it's a lot of pundits as well forget because a lot of them are older, right? Ex-players and stuff like that are some of the worst. I don't know if they forget, but they just don't seem to take into account that some of these guys, no matter how much advice you get and support, like if you're 21, 22, 23, as a male, I don't think you just aren't as mature as if, you know, like you're 30 or 40. There's a big difference. There certainly was for me. And so, you know, these guys are affected by stuff in a way that I think a Carragher or I don't think of some of the Arsenal ex-Arsenal players who can be critical probably aren't affected, you know, because they're just older and they've had more experience of the world. Sometimes you've got to keep in mind that some of these guys are kids. Like Bukayo Saka, very good player for Arsenal, right? Very consistent. There's a similarity with Salah in that there isn't that spectacularness. There sometimes is, but they're just consistent. There's like a massive level of consistency, and the gap between like their high level and their worst games is really narrow, and their worst level is like usually better than most people, which makes them like just an automatic first choice. And the guy, we were like totally dependent on this guy. Like if he gets injured, it's a disaster in an attacking sense, and everything's going through him. And he's like 22 or 23 at the time, and yeah, and he has one off day or something, and people are like criticizing. And I mean, I think they're quite strong characters, these guys, particularly at the bigger clubs. But you also think like you've got to remember that they don't choose to get paid what they get paid. It's very easy just to sort of criticize players as if like, oh, he's on 250 bags a week. He, you know, getting on his back. Like Kai Havertz, they got on his back, right? Missed a load of chances against Manchester United in an FA Cup semi-final. Easy chances. And there's a segment of the Arsenal kind of fan base that are just on his case and like having to go at his wife and stuff like that. And there was some threat. Did you read about that? There was like a threat to his wife who was pregnant or something at the time. And they picked the guy out. It's like a teenager in not far from where I come from, Hemel Hempstead or somewhere like that, right? And I think he got done for it, right? Because it was like an abusive, a threatening sort of social media thing on Twitter, but surprise, surprise, or on X. And you think, honestly, the guy came in, he had a bit of a bad start. Then he looked really good, scored loads and loads of goals, then started the season a little bit off again. Then he had one game where he missed a penalty at the end, I think, and then in a penalty shootout, that was it. And he missed a couple of open chances. And everyone does that from time to time. And like, he's getting almost like death threat level abuse for it. You just think, what's going on?
Well, Nunes got that last season. He shut down his Instagram account. He was just like, "That's it. When you threaten my family, that's going overboard." Again, banter's good, if it stays like banter, like singing the songs. Oh, I'm going to ask you this, James. What is
Yeah.
it with Arsenal fans taking Liverpool chants? That's doing my head in.
Have
You,
they been doing that?
yeah, you took the Diaz one, you've taken the Jota one, you took the LALA. That's got to stop. That's a no-no.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I don't go to the Emirates that often. It's impossible to get tickets unless you basically have stump up a lot of money for. You got to buy like a membership to just be with a chance to get a ticket. And I kind of resent that because whilst I love football, you take out a lot of time, and I like to play it more than I like to pay to watch it. You know what I mean? I find when I go to watch it, some of the time a lot of the time you leave feeling frustrated and angry, and you've paid for it, and you're kind of lining the pockets of the owners of the club. So on that basis, I go if my son wants to go, and I buy tickets for him. But I generally wouldn't go and get a season ticket. I don't think. And whilst I love football, I'm not. The Sky subscription plus the match day ticket prices that just keep going up and up and up. Yeah, so in that sense, I'm not like a true fan, like going to the games because I don't think they need my money. They get enough money from the merch drops they do every week, all around the world. They've got like millions of followers. Arsenal Football Club, I love the club, but as a business, they don't need my money.
Well, let's play a little game. Um, Give me two Liverpool players from the past that you would have for Arsenal, and then give me two players from the current team you would have for Arsenal, and I'll give you mine.
From the past, let's have a think. I think Fernando Torres when he was because he had his best form at Liverpool, didn't he? He was just fantastic. That year when they ran Ferg. It was Benitez was in charge, wasn't it? And they ran United very close, like really close. And I think it was Arsenal that stopped them that year with a 4-4 draw at Anfield, where one of our players, Andre Arshavin, scored 4 goals. I think that season, I think it was Torres scored. I can't remember. Maybe it was a hat trick. He scored against Manchester United. They beat Manchester United. Ferguson's peak Manchester United. I remember thinking I would love to have him. And apart from the thing where he bit the guy's ear, I would take that guy because I just think he was superb. But he just had that. There was a thing about him where he just seemed like a little animal that would just get overexcited and potentially would bite someone or do something crazy. But other than that, he's just such a good footballer.
Yeah.
So probably him. And from the current team, I probably maybe Van Dijk like 2 years ago or something because he's just a monster who can take care of very big attackers. Probably him, and I would probably say Salah, but then we've already got Madueke and Saka on that right hand side. Yeah, maybe Lewis. I don't know. I would say Salah, yeah, and just put him on the left and hope that he does the business on the left.
Well, for me, Henri, 100%, and Bergkamp, because he he just made football look so simple. He really did. He could cut through butter. Some of his passing just out of this world, and it just seemed like. I mean, it reminded me of like how Stevie G was with Torres. They just seemed to be in sync, and Henri
Yeah,
and Camp were the same. From the team now, Rice, 100%. Rice is I'm surprised not more teams went in for him, but I
I
think
think Manchester United were after him, weren't they? I'm sure
God
Manchester
he
United were
didn't go
trying.
there. I think yeah, but he's a London boy, so I think he really wanted just to stay in the capital. But I would have Rice and probably Saka, just because
Yeah,
he's like, I mean, obviously he's what 10 years younger than Salah, so he would be the
he'd be a
replacement.
very good. Yeah, he's very consistent. Like statistically, every play he's involved in, it either ends with we get a throw, we get a foul, he gets in on goal. Like he very rarely. Like I'm sure if you take whatever the stats are for that, he's just one of the highest in terms of his just end product kind of thing. But interesting you mentioned Burkamp and Henri, right? Because they were the days when I did used to go to watch football. I lived in London back then, and it was Highbury. It was like before the Emirates move, and you could get in, you could get tickets, and I saw them. I saw both those players. I actually saw Burkamp before Wenger. I'm pretty sure the other guy got him, Bruce Rioch, the manager who was there before Arsene Wenger got Burkamp. And like we had Ian Wright, but he'd made a load of other terrible signings, George Graham or Bruce Rioch. And this guy coming in just took like it's like I don't know. He took it so far upwards in terms of his ability, Dennis Burkamp. But I watched him in the flesh, and like I noticed he did a lot of I wouldn't say dirty stuff, but he was very like he used his body and his elbows a lot. Mark Hughes used to do the same thing for Manchester United. Remember that guy? A lot of elbows and probably difficult. They look really effective, but I imagine if you're a defender, you're always like want to punch them or something because it's always like they're trying to foul you. And with Burkamp, he was just really effective with just like using his body and just making space. But Henri was the one. He just made it look so easy. I saw him in the flesh a few times. Massive as well. It doesn't seem to look that big on the TV. But everything he does just seemed to come off. He just almost never seemed to get injured. Do you know what I mean? So his form just reached this level and just pretty much stayed there the whole time, and it very rarely went down. So yeah, you don't realise how lucky you are watching these players until they start leaving and moving on, and the people who come in are just slowly levels down, levels down, levels down, and then everyone's like expecting. That's why there's some of the Arsenal fans are so moany now because I think they just expect to come back to that. It's like no, that's like a generational thing. It's very hard to get like a whole team's worth of players that gel who are absolutely world class. So yeah, I was lucky enough to see a lot of Thierry Henry.
Well, I think I've been to Highbury many times, and I loved it because you're pretty much right there on the pitch with them,
Yeah,
yeah, Emirates, beautiful stadium, and you've still kind of kept, the closeness. You look at stadiums like West Ham's. There's, I mean, between the
yeah.
fans and the pitch, you're so far away, and
Have they got one of those running tracks around it
yeah,
at West
yeah,
Ham?
yeah. So you just feel so disconnected from the game. I mean, Highbury was just great to go to, but like you say, just seeing them in the flesh was just absolutely amazing. And you say Bergkamp using like a little dirty tactics, but he got away with it because he was
Mm.
smooth. You know,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
there's a lot of dirty tactics that go on. Obviously, I saw it the other day, kind of with Van Dijk and what's his name from Everton. They were having a good laugh, but they were
Oh, I know the one. He's a monster as well, isn't it? Tarkovsky, that guy.
yeah. But at the end of the day, they're just the footballers and they want to win games. But it's just it's come up a notch or two. Football has changed. You can't really tackle anymore.
Yeah,
I used to love the slide tackle, take a player out, but you get the ball as well. But now, if you do the follow through, it's a foul. How
yeah,
how are you supposed to stop yourself?
yeah, yeah.
Tracks. It's gone a little bit silly, and then with what they're trying to do with like they want to start doing like halftime talks to the managers. They want to talk to the subs that get subbed off. It's getting too Americanized, like American
Mm.
football. I don't think football needs tweaking that much.
No, halftime interviews are ridiculous. That's just don't want to be doing that. But the Burkamps and some of the old Arsenal players, because I watched a lot of us when we had George Graham. That's when I first started going to games. I was a teenager, and I saw us win a title in a really boring football, really defensive football. The fullbacks weren't allowed to go over the halfway line. You never saw them go up unless it was a corner, and they'd have to get back. It was just really negative football, basically. And if you're winning, it's great, but when they stopped winning, the atmosphere in there was just horrific, just toxic. But I noticed that the way that Winterburn, Lee Dixon, Tony Adams, Steve Bold, even Burkamp when he came in, they wouldn't get away with that now. I think Burkham would be getting yellow cards quite quickly in the game. Tony Adams would be getting sent off every single game. I mean, it's a completely different game now. I don't know how that stuff just wouldn't fly these days.
What's your predictions for the season?
That's impossible to say, isn't it? I mean, I'm still not over last season because Arsenal were in a position in the winter to go and get Ollie Watkins or like maybe one other or some of these players they've just got. Then because Liverpool were in a position where we could have had a go at that title, and in the end, Arsenal just sat back and said, "You know what? We're just going to give up on it essentially." And then Liverpool are 10 points ahead, and then I was looking at it thinking we didn't even put pressure on them. There's just no like didn't even get to the point of putting pressure on. But yeah, for this season, I think we did pretty good business. We've already got a load of injuries. There's people coming back, and that's always a good thing when you got people coming back, particularly if they're coming back toward the end of the season. It always I've seen it in the past when you players start dropping in April. That's when the team falls away. I've seen it happen with Arsene Wenger with like Lundberg and these guys getting injured against Bolton Wanderers, and then the title challenge fades, and then Ferguson's rubbing his hands together and comes up and wins another title. This year, I'm not convinced with Liverpool that they're going to be 10 points ahead again at the point they were. I think we're going to be closer just because of the depth. I look at our bench now and I'm thinking, I would love to be this manager because you just got so many options. Like if things aren't working out, you can try so many different things because he's just got the resources to do it. And there's also these two wonder kids coming in with Arsenal, like this Max Dowman guy, a guy called Ethan Nwaneri, who's absolutely amazing. And they're all sort of somehow in a state where they're trying to prove themselves. You haven't got to the point yet where people are pissed off, on the bench, like, why am I not getting the minutes? At some point, that will probably start. But he's managing that stuff quite well, I think, Mikel Arteta. And guys who've been out for, Martin Odegaard's had like a season and a half, like below his standard, to the point where people are questioning him. Like he's like one of our best players. People are saying, oh, he's like an Ozil. And then all of a sudden he's now Martin no Odegaard. He's pillow foot. He can't shoot. And they want him out. They're saying he should be stripped of the captaincy and all of this bullshit. But he had a little phase out, came on as a sub, and looks like he's back. Like Martinelli, another one who got slagged off for losing his form, looks like I think he's just got Arteta's got them to the stage where they're hungry. Like all of them. So when people come on, they're not coming on with a "why the fuck didn't I start" type energy. They're coming on with a like, I want to help the team. So the vibes seem quite good there at the minute. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still scared of Manchester City just because of what Pep Guardiola's done over the years. And I've seen when Liverpool got like 90 points or something and still didn't win the league. Stuff like that. And they can go on those runs, can't they? From like March onwards, they win every single game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the same three: us, City, and yous lot. I can't see anybody else. People are talking about Palace, and they should be talking about Palace. They've done really well, but it's kind of to me like a Notts Forest. Notts Forest were up there for a while, then they'll kind of taper off. I think that'll happen to Palace. It's going to be the same three. I don't know because I don't really do predictions, but I don't know which ones. I think it's going to go down to the wire the last couple of games of the season because, again, the Champions League format, a lot more games. Again, UEFA don't give two shits about these players. They're putting more and more games on, each season, and I think people forget, and just like you alluded to with how much they get paid. They should play fucking 7 days a week for getting paid 200, 500k.
Yeah, on a Sunday at 4:30, then Tuesday evening in like Eastern Europe, and then back again for.
They're human beings.
Yeah,
I mean, they're just like me and you. They're just athletes, and I just think more and more players are coming out and saying it. Van Dijk said it last season. Like, how much more do you want from us? And I agree. I mean, it's like the bread and butter, I think, for all of us is the Premier League, is to win that. But we're being affected by the Champions League. We're being affected by the Europa League because we're going to bumfuck who knows where, and people don't understand like the travel, just like DJing, the travel takes it out of you.
Yeah, and not and there's a psychological element as well, isn't there, to the traveling, being away from family and stuff like that. And people just see the money. They don't think about the money that the agents are getting and some of the owners and some of the quiet people behind the scenes. I say, like, direct your focus on some of these guys because the agents, their career keeps going. For the players, it's like a meat market. When you're no use, that you're out, and You can have some that are flavour of the moment, but basically, it's quite. I don't think it's the easy life that everyone says it is. It's actually quite a tough life. You get a lot of scrutiny, a lot of abuse. You know, you've got to maintain a certain level, particularly in the Premier League. If you're not up to it, you get even at the smaller clubs. You know, yeah, I've known. Basically, where I come from is Hitchin. It's near Luton, so Luton Town was the nearest like proper club, and or I suppose Arsenal and North London clubs are a little bit near. I was in North Hertfordshire, and same down here. Like we're near Brighton, right? We're in Burgess Hill. There's people in my son's year group. There was two amazing footballers. They got to the age of like 15, 16 in the Brighton Academy, and then they're just tossed aside. Like they give a professional contract to like two out of however many that they had, and the others are just, they don't give them a pathway to carry on. They're just like a kid whose dream has just ended, and maybe some have the resilience to say, you know what, I'm going to try and go into a Crawley town or something like that and try and build. But most just give up and just, you know, I think people just think it's just some sort of easy life. I just don't think it is at all. I think it's a hard road to get there. You don't just get, you don't get jobs for the ball. You've actually got to be good, right? I mean, there was, yeah, I think footballers do get a hard time. I think it's a lot of it's just based on people just see the bottom line money, and it's stirred up by newspapers like the Sun, the sports columnists in the places like the Sun, who are full of bitter kind of that sports desk full of kind of miserable old men who, yeah, just resent anyone successful. I think in football, yeah.
Well,
So
it segues into the music side too, because there's a lot of kids want to be these massive DJs because they think oh, private jet, blah blah blah, massive
yeah,
hotel, all of these women or men like all over you, and you know I go back to, there was a young lad who played in the academy for Man City that committed suicide a few years ago because he got let go. And I think, over here, like one of my best mates, he does the British Academy of Soccer, and he sees it with families that the mums and dads didn't make it in the sport, so they're living their lives through the children,
mm,
and they're having a go at the children. Oh, you've got to do this, you got to do that, you got to pass this way, you got to work harder, and this is directed at 7, 8 year olds,
yeah,
and
yeah,
at that time you're supposed to just be enjoying it and having
yeah,
fun instead of thinking, oh shit, I've got to like do this and that. And I mean, it's same with the DJing thing. There's so many kids, like I said, want to be DJs. It's not going to work out for them. It's
mm,
just not, same with producing as well. I mean,
yeah,
everybody these days can make a track quite easily. You just need, Ableton or whatever you're into, and you can make a track and you can put it out yourself on Bandcamp or Beatport,
Spotify,
Spotify, and it'll maybe it'll get a TikTok viral moment, which is one in God knows millions. But most of it will just fall through the cracks.
mm,
So it's tough. You've got to be a tough individual. I mean, for
yeah,
yourself, like music wise, when when did it really start for you? Because I know you've kind of had two eras now. The
yes.
the 90s and the early 2000s, and then you took the break, and it's only the past couple of years you seem to have come back. When for you, how did like the was it DJing first or the production side?
Well, I mean, I was a punter first and foremost, and really, it's my partner Jo who got me in. She's from Hastings, right, and she used to go to Hastings Pier to see the young John Digweed, Danny Howells used to play there quite a lot. And at the time, I was kind of into guitar. I was always into music in a big way, right? But I was playing guitar in a band, and we were not a great band, really, but it was a good time of music, like mid 90s, when I was like, what would I have been? Just coming up to 20, finishing. Yeah, where was I? Yeah, I was still in my hometown at that point, and I hadn't really discovered dance music other than Olive, You're Not Alone, or Underworld, Born Slip, chart tracks essentially that you see. And I was sort of interested in electronic music, and but I'd never been to a nightclub or a rave or anything. And people were starting to do that stuff, even at the last years of school, like the sixth form, like the end of the sixth form, people were going to these indie raves. I just was quite immature as a human being. Some people at 17, 18, they were already drinking, smoking, taking drugs, doing all of this sort of stuff. And I just kind of wasn't ready for all that. I was still like an 11 or a 10-year-old, like emotionally, and you can't always control these things, right? So I just wasn't, when people were doing this stuff, I was like, oh, I don't like the sound of that. I'm not interested. They were going to these raves in Cambridge. This was like acid house raves or something, but I was not interested. And I heard the music and I'm like, it just sounds discordant. It's just like bleeps and I just don't like it. It's not pleasant to my ears. So I can't pretend I was like into all of that right at the start. But then I can't remember how it started. You know what? It's really important to remember the first time you went to something like that. And I just can't remember. But it was one of the clubs in London, like Bagley's. They used to do a thing there called Freedom, like a big 5-room kind of event. And I hadn't had any experience of anything else, but there was a couple of rooms that were quite glammy and they kind of made it up to look like an Ibiza type setting, which I didn't know anything about as well. So it's just like, what's going on in here? And I was like, oh yeah, this looks interesting. And then I sometimes hear cool music, but I hadn't really heard music that locked me in properly until I think it was someone like Paul Van Dyke or someone trancey, basically, I heard first. And then I was like, wow, this is, I'm really starting to get into this. And that at that point, my interest in the electronic music grew and the interest in the guitar music started to wane a little bit, and the desire to be in a band was waning a little bit. I was doing work and like normal jobs and stuff, but I then started to try and buy records because I think we were going out to different clubs by this point, Channel Club, stuff in Vauxhalls, SW1 Club, daytime clubs. It was quite excessive. This is the 90s in London. Like we're talking 95, 96, 97. So the weekends just became about going to these. There was always something on, like there were weeklies, the parties were weekly and they were packed, like all of them. Some of them you couldn't even get in, like one in, one out by 11 p.m. The Gallery, Turnmills. Never used to go to Ministry of Sound. They opened Fabric a few years later, but there was just a lot going on. But I was into like almost like hard house DJ. So like Tony DeVitt came to town and I was really excited to see him. But I was not so much into him as there was another fella called Tony Price that I liked, or another one called Darren Pierce. But then I met Jo and she took us to a Renaissance party at the Cross Club, in King's Cross. So this would have been 96, I think, or 97. And I remember thinking just fucking wow. I think Nigel Dawson was playing. He was a resident there, or Ian Ossier, one of the two. I think it was Nigel Dawson. And he very quickly became the one I was like, he's reliable. He's playing what I want to hear, and I started to get more and more into it. Then I started to hover around the DJ booth and sort of try and look, what is he playing? What's the record? What's the artist? Then I started going to Plastic Fantastic, the record shop, and then some of Joe's friends were like DJs or like small time DJs in Hastings. They just play locally and stuff. So I spoke to them a little bit. Didn't really learn too much, but I mean, I learned about some of the record shops, and then I started to get obsessed with buying records. And I wasn't really DJing it, but I was just buying the records and listening to them. And I bought some turntables, but never really. I mean, I played at like parties with friends and stuff like that, but never took it on as something to try and do properly. It was just like something for fun. But the music part of it was an obsession, like listening to the records, understanding the music. And I was really interested in everything that people were playing. And I was aware that there was some stuff that I couldn't buy in the shops. And that was the first thing that struck me. There's always these amazing records, normally toward the end of the sets, right? In the progressive house, that's always the way they like to do it, like they build up to something. And I'd go into the shops and it was Plastic Fantastic. And the guy there, Enzo, who runs it, or his brother would hand over like a big pile of records, and they soon got to know what I liked, and then I was getting piles of records and I was spending a lot of money on records. So I've got like a fucking garage full of records that I've got nothing to play them on these days. But then I quickly realized I wasn't able to get the ones that I was really loving from the night before, 2 nights before. And that's when I decided to try to start making it myself. And then by now it was like 1998, I would say. And I got like a copy of Cubase, had a cheap computer, and it was just on vibes. I didn't really know what I was doing. You know what I mean? I didn't know how to mix. And back then, the software wasn't that great. I didn't have any proper keyboards or analog synths. Couldn't afford anything like that. So it was just like cracked copies. Probably shouldn't admit that of certain synths that I could get hold of at the time. Right, PPG Wave, Waldorf PPG Wave was a good one. And I was making bass lines with like stock synthesizers inside Cubase, and I managed to get a track signed to a Canadian record label called Release Records. It was horribly mixed and it's painful to listen to now. But like I was basically trying to recreate something I thought I'd heard somewhere before, like a mishmash of things I could remember from nights out clubbing. So I had a little bit of a surge like that. But then we had a baby and a lot of other things got in the way. And I'm always been quite anxious about, I feel like if I'm not earning money, then I'm doing something horribly wrong. It's just the way I've been brought up, for better or for worse. And I got easily distracted. I wanted it to be my primary thing, I think, deep down, but really I'd have long periods where I wasn't doing it, you know, but I was still going out quite a bit. So that was like, you said there was 2 eras. There was like 3. There was this little one at the start, and that was like 1999, 2000, 2001. And I think the first record actually came out in 2001. Then there was a break almost up to 2005 where it was like family, and we moved house, and there was just a lot of upheaval, and I moved jobs. And then I came back in 2005 and I had a label called Twisted Frequency. And I was just interested in some of the music that was James Zabila, Nick Fanciulli, and some of these guys had come with a fresher kind of sound. I'd got a bit bored of progressive house, so it was just starting to all sound the same to me. So I kind of came back and had a label, did vinyl on that label. And it was really enthusiastic for like end of 2005, launched kind of to end of 2005, 2006 was really good, 2007 was really good. 2008 it sort of peaked. There was a record that did really well, got to #1 on Beatport. Then started getting, well, 2007 I started getting some small gigs, but in 2008 I started getting bigger gigs just because that one record did well in places more far afield, but wasn't making a huge amount of money. Could never have lived off it. But maybe that's just bad management on my part, self-management, or not accepting management offers because I didn't trust the people who were managing. But essentially, just sort of, I would say from that point it petered out because I couldn't really manage myself, couldn't really manage the situation. I was still drinking a lot. I'd kind of traveled, but then I kind of thought, well, I've done what I need to do with production, but the production was the thing I actually loved in the first place. So I kind of lost touch with that. And so it just sort of fizzled out over quite a long period of time. So like, you know, maybe 3 or 4 years of fizzling. And then it was finally, the nail was in like 2013, 14. I suddenly thought, yeah, this doesn't resemble anything like what was going on in 2006, 2007. I'm just going to have a break. And then in 2021, I think, or 2021, I came back into it. This was like the current sort of iteration. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this properly this time. I'm going to really focus on production. I'm going to learn about what I'm doing rather than just doing it on vibes, which is what was happening before. And we're actually going to listen to other people, talk to other producers, try and be open enough to learn something from others rather than being closed like I was back previously. And just do it daily, but not all day, but like just do like an hour, 2 hours of production every day, because I actually love that process and just the fun of what might happen. So I just did that and just stuck with that, and that's where I am now, essentially. Yeah. So it's been a funny old, but those periods with music are just so much better than the ones without. When I stopped it, it's like there's something missing from my life. You know, that's the one thing I can say for sure. I didn't know it at the time, but it's something that's missing, and it gets substituted with other unhealthier things until you plug back in that thing that you're supposed to be really doing, which is creating, in my case. So it's not really about DJing, and I was never really a DJ. I got DJ gigs, and I was hopeless at the beginning. I was like, I think people, the connection between producing and DJing is just odd. I found it very odd at the time that you produce music and then people are suddenly booking you for DJ gigs when it's a completely different skill set. Do you know what I mean? Like a live set is a completely different skill set to fucking playing other people's records. That's about going through other people's records, getting to know those records, and it's just so now I know what my identity is. I can do DJing in a limited, as long as I can't just turn up anywhere and be ready to play anywhere. And I don't profess to. I'm not trying to, but there's a range of situations where I can do it, but my real thing is being an artist, being a producer. And for example, my next gig is actually as an artist. It's not a live set per se, but it will be my own stuff essentially. Whereas the smaller club gigs, I do more like a DJ gig thing. But I'm not heavily touring or anything like that. Yeah, so my primary thing is studio and its production.
Well, I remember BT, absolutely amazing producer, and he got booked to DJ, and it was not very good, because he's a producer.
Mm.
But back in the day, to make money, you'd have to DJ as well,
Yeah,
take
yeah,
these
yeah,
gigs, and you could tell like he wasn't comfortable with it.
yeah. I know how he feels. I was like that. I mean, I became comfortable, but I learned on the job. And by the time I started actually getting good at it, the bookings dried up because I hadn't been making any music. So the thing that actually was, you kind of needed at that point, you needed to be making music in order to get. Now I think it's changed. I don't even think making music's enough because I actually don't even think there's that much of a. It's changed a lot. I think certainly in this country. I think in some places, like if you're willing to accept lower paid gigs, there's actually quite a lot of stuff to do out there. But this idea of just roaming around and getting paid thousands everywhere you go is a very small group of elite people who are doing that, and there's a lot of management that goes on to maintain that situation for them. Which goes way beyond music and production skills and even DJ skills, in my opinion. But
Well, I mean, this day and age, you've got to kind of create a brand for yourself, something that at the beginning of the rave scene was so anti brand or anti anything really, so it's kind of weird when, I see everything as a brand. I'm building my brand. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, produce music, yes, great. DJ, great, but this brand bullshit. Again, I come from the old school. I come
yeah,
from, where you break into warehouses and put sound systems in there and just fucking rave and just have a good old time. I wasn't thinking about, oh shit, I need to build a brand, but that's the way we've gone. And you know,
yeah.
you look at like the state of like the DJ Mag Top 100.
I don't even look at that. I don't even know where I would find that. I never did. I was never interested in that because it just used to be the big name trance DJ, didn't it? At one point, it was
Yeah,
like
now it's
Tiesto.
all EDM one, David Guetta number one. And again, I don't like his music, but I saw an interview with him, and I do appreciate when he says, like, I'm not a DJ anymore. I'm an entertainer,
Mm,
which is there is a massive difference. You know,
mm,
you're basically just there to entertain people, and you're pushing buttons, and you're not really
mm.
like giving your all blood, sweat, and tears. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
it's just changed, and it's how many followers you have on Instagram. If you don't have enough followers, you're not going to get booked. That's it. You know,
I don't even think the number of followers makes a difference anymore. I honestly think that it's can you sell tickets essentially,
yeah,
and the number of followers doesn't necessarily mean that. So it has to be. It's like it's even not even just followers and engagement. I just think you've got to look like you're marketable in a number of different ways. I think these days, that's the impression I get. I mean, I don't really. It's just not something that bothers me because I never was really competing on that. In that, I mean, probably a controversial thing to say, but a lot of the old school, like I'm thinking back to like 2005, 6, 7, when I was sort of involved in the scene a bit more similar to how I was now during the bit where I was fairly successful. And what I noticed, I think it's the same thing you've got now, where there's like a small group of people who establish themselves. And I always used to look and see what's the difference between them and some of the other people who I think are also talented but just aren't in that position. What's the difference? And oftentimes the difference is it's like a mentality thing. Like the people who are at the top of, like David Guetta as an example, right? He had a not ghost producer, like a production partner called Joachim Garraud, I think his name was, like a French guy. When he was making like his what I consider to be his better stuff, which was like to end of the 90s. No, it's kind of mid 2000s when he was a bit more housey. Was it David Guetta? Yeah, but he was trying to break into America, and he said to this guy, "You got to prioritize my my projects over your own because we need to crack the American market." So they're thinking strategically, and I think it might even be the same for some of the people who were big in the years before that. I think that's the difference. And the things they're doing is the equivalent of this branding stuff, but it's just they're quieter about it. But that's what they were doing, and that's how you maintain this level of success. I'm pretty sure that that's what it. Well, that's what's. And I don't have any resentment or anything like that. But I just think we need to acknowledge this isn't necessarily a new thing. It just looks new because it's on show with Instagram and so on. But I think the psychology and the kind of behavior of the people involved and the kind of the management concept was always there, but just for the people who don't self-manage, haven't got focus, they're just only into the music, you can only get so far like that. As unfortunately that's just the reality of it. And I've been in that. I'm more like an artistic person who loves the expression and the creation, but that alone, unless you've got someone puppeting you or control it, or you can somehow just be a different person and be like a manager managing yourself, which is what I try to be quite badly, and then you can kind of make some moves. But if you really want to get to a high tier, you've got to do it really strategically, I think. Like there's a Liverpudlian guy, young kid called Masano, who I think is I mean, I really rate that guy. I think he's an amazing producer, but what he's done is quite exemplary because he's just sort of focused and gone in on a certain sound. He's gone in hard on that sound. He's just got really good at that sound, made it his, and it's still pretty cool as well, you know, like compared to a lot of the EDM stuff, it's like decent. And he's achieved a level that like is just beyond anything I've ever achieved, probably will ever achieve, and beyond what most people have achieved. So I don't think it has to be just like pure, you know, what's the word, like just ugly kind of branding, or just balls out kind of capitalism style stuff. You know, I think it is possible to have the balance of a decent artistic vision, which there's some authenticity to, but also some success. And I think that's what people need to go for. But the other thing is this scene, and you mentioned it earlier, people just see the private jets or the concept of private jets and swimming pools or whatever the hell it is that they imagine the lifestyle that they're going to be living 24/7. And so it attracts a lot of, I don't know what the word is, somewhere in the realms of sociopathy and narcissism. It attracts an awful lot of people who fit in, just people who are naturally greedy and drawn towards wealth and money. And because it's an unregulated world, right? It's not like there's no governing bodies or anything. It means that you've got to navigate past a lot of difficult characters. And I found that extremely difficult over the years. I just was unable to deal with it. And if I feel like I was like, why is this person so nice to me now? But they just literally had no interest in me 3 weeks ago. And when I drop out of things, I'm then also not. And the answer is, you're useful to them in that moment, but you're not fucking useful to them now. And you weren't useful to them back then. And I found that hard to get my head around.
Yeah.
You know, I found it really difficult to get my head around it. And only now have I got my head around it. Like, it took me 40 years or 30 years or whatever it is to just understand. And so now, rather than just resenting people who like use you, or, you know, because there's a lot of people who the industry has chewed them up, spat them out, and they're just resentful. And I thought, well, I could either end up like that or just understand that they're just human beings, and, you know, they're just trying to do what they think they need to do to get what they want, essentially. And rather than get pissy with them and put a lot of energy into that, which is kind of what I was doing. The thing I had a problem with was like people pushing me around and telling me I should do this and I should do that. I've always had a little bit of a trigger on those kind of things. And I was finding myself dealing with people who were like bossing me about and telling me I should be making this sort of music, I should be making that sort of music. And I've reacted really badly to that. Do you know what I mean? Because it was almost like, it's the antithesis of what any artist wants to do. You don't want to be told to make something, oh, it needs to be more this, it needs to be more that, because this is what's getting big at the minute. This is what's getting big at the minute. And I kind of blackballed people and cut them off. So I ended up cutting people off left, right, and centre. So eventually I'm kind of isolating myself because everyone's pissing me off. And it got to the point where people are saying things that, you know, I might be misreading the signals, and I'd be getting the impression that this person's trying to I need to cut them off. I can't be dealing with this. And so I'd just like, okay, thanks. Yeah. I wish you all the best. And I'll just cut that label off or that person off or that. So yeah, that's one of the big mistakes I was making in that 2007, 8, 9 era. And now I'm not like that. I'll give people time, and if I get the feeling they're fucking me around, I'll be a bit more straight up, but without the emotional involvement. It's more like, and I still make mistakes. I've still got involved in some things I shouldn't have done, and I haven't been ripped off that many times. It has happened a couple of times, but yeah, it's this idea that it's some easy road where you just end up on private jets and stuff like that. It's just a load of nonsense.
Well,
I
I
mean, to
think
some people might look at me and think, "Oh, you're really successful." It's just everyone's got this vision that the people who are doing slightly better than them are living some kind of perfect life. I don't think any of them are. Even probably there's insecurities with the people at the very top. I even would say.
well, people have different levels of success. You've got that success where if you want to travel the world on private jets, okay. Some success is putting tracks out on Beatport,
Yeah,
just getting your tracks out. That's their
or
success.
or getting them finished, or getting your
Yeah,
ideas out to the point where you're happy. That's like the bar really that everyone should have. Like you love what you've done, and you're completely convinced by what you've done without thinking about what other people might like. Will this DJ play it? Will this label sign it? Fuck all that shit. You just want to be making it so that you love it. And I think that is success to me.
yeah. I think. I mean, success for me would be to walk into a club and hear somebody else playing my music.
Yeah.
On a great sound system, and just be like, because I see these videos on Instagram of there's a lad called Lloyd Boardman who just got signed to Sasha's label, and Sasha played his track at Croatia, and just the joy that's coming from Lloyd's face
Yeah.
is that's what you want. That's success to me. Like,
Yeah.
one of
I mean,
you,
it's a validation, isn't it? It's a
yeah,
validation that someone else believes in what you're doing. But I think the number one thing has to be you have to believe in it.
yeah.
Like really genuinely without and then not have the need for someone to tell you it's good or not have the need to see someone playing it. That step I think is I hadn't I still had this idea that in the beginning I had this idea that unless it's on the BBC Radio 1 Essential mix or something, it's a failure. It's just nonsense. But then as you get on and you start to, yeah, I really am quite passionate about that. I'm doing another. I've done a course. I'm going to do another one. I'm recording it next week to talk a little bit about production technique, but also about that kind of the thinking. And I'm trying to find a way to articulate it because it sounds like a simple mindset switch, but it isn't. It's took me years to be able to do it. Where you just essentially self-validate and you just get to the point where you're honest about what you love and even if what you're making isn't necessarily what you want to hear when you go out, but if that's what's coming out naturally, just go all in on it and get it to sound as like the absolute best you can. And I really believe that's the way for artists. It's just my way of seeing it. But yeah, those validation moments of hearing someone playing your track is great. It's good to share it, and that helps you get noticed and all the rest of it. But at the same time, you're also helping them look good, right? So this guy Lloyd, who you mentioned, he's helping that DJ look like a genius when he's playing that record. So it's a two-way thing. It's a bit easy, I think, sometimes to put the people who are established on a pedestal and make them the ones that have to validate your worth as a producer. And my message is that's not necessary. You can validate. You haven't got that platform, fair enough, but you can validate yourself by loving what you do.
Well, I wanted to ask you your relationship with Mark from Syncopat. Like,
Yeah.
I've had Mark on, and such an amazing human being. Um, how did that relationship start for you? Because I mean, you've obviously put out quite a lot of music on there.
Yeah. No, Mark's a good friend. Basically, when I came back into music 2021 and I was finding labels to release on, Traum was one of them, and Celador was another one, and Syncopat was the third one. So I wanted to have this thing where I just work with like a small group of labels and make which kind of cover the style of what I'm doing. And Mark really believed, like he was the first I suppose Dave at Salador as well. But Mark, I realized he had a studio and he was also like a mix engineer and a producer. And I guess with labels, I'm always slightly going to favor people who are also producers, but just because they'll be really interested in all the details rather than, like one of the big business labels where they just want the finished product and aren't really that interested in anything in between. It's a better experience as an artist, I think, if you're working with a label that's owned by someone who really gets the process. So they'll do things, for example, like listen to a pre-master or a version minus a part that you're going to add in the future, and they'll still be able to hear it properly. Whereas some of the really, really big labels will be like, "I'll just send us it when it's finished." They're not interested in anything; they just want the end product so they can just get it out there. Whereas with Mark, he listened to a big playlist I sent, and he picked out certain tracks, and he gave me some feedback. And he also said, "Oh yeah, we mixed the stuff at Syncopat." And I was listening, and my mixing at the time wasn't that amazing, but I was listening to the Syncopat catalog, and I'm thinking all of this stuff sounds consistently really well mixed, really powerful. When I'd played them out, they sounded really, really good. They had a lot of good artists come through the label. So he signed 2 tracks. One of them became really big, and I loved what they did on the mix. So we worked together a bit more. I did a second EP. Then we just talked and did I think it was a collab called Parabola. Then made an EP, collaboration EP. Talked about technique a little bit. I mean, he's quite busy, Mark, as he runs a studio called Pobla. So I didn't have a super access to him, but as I put, I think it was the third EP, we started to talk and get a bit closer. And yeah, he's just a really good guy, knows what he's doing.
You can't
Has a slightly
pigeonhole.
different style, so we bring slightly different things to the table, which means it has made some quite interesting collabs. Sorry.
I'm just saying you can't really pigeonhole his label. Where
Yeah.
you've got it down where it's melodic, he'll go indie dance, or there'll be a breaks track or electronica track, and that's what I love about his label is and I go back to what you said too, like prog house back in the day was starting to sound the same. I think progressive house, depending on like the South American progressive house, to me starts sounding the same. Very floaty, it's very
Mm.
well produced, but it just sounds the same.
Yeah.
Syncopat, I'm thankfully on the mailing list, so I get all of your stuff as well.
Oh, nice.
It's so nice, and it's just refreshing to
Yeah.
it's something that every different release is something different, and that's what I love about the label. Now for you're just starting with your Zero9 label. Obviously, is it two releases?
Two releases. Yeah.
Yeah,
Two
you've got
down at the minute. One
one
to
from
come.
Gabrielle Atlas, which is superb, and then your own. What's like with starting a label? What's your idea of where you want it to go?
Well, I mean, Gabriel's kind of worked with me a bit on this label. I kind of had the idea to start the label when he sent me a track. He just randomly sent me a track. This guy had never spoken to him before, and I was loving it. He sent me True Neptune, and I was like, "Fucking hell! I just love this record." So I spoke, and I said, "I am planning to." I was in the back of my head planning to start a label for a long time, but just never got around to it. But that was the thing that made me actually go ahead and do it. And so the idea is, I mean, to be honest, I'm kind of making up as I go along. I don't know if it's going to be opened up for demos and things like that. At the minute, it's just my releases and his releases alternately. We got like 4, and I'm working on a 5th for the beginning of 2026. But yeah, it's just, I guess, I mean, I don't know, genre wise, I couldn't say. I guess it's like the Syncopat situation, isn't it? Where it's like indie, as in independent, like not really attached to a certain scene. There's not really too many rules, but there's a sort of a focus on club sounds. There's a bit of a focus with mine on melody. I mean, with Syncopat, there's a psychedelic element that runs through what Mark likes, the artwork, even in his sound. He takes influences from a few different places, and I can feel that like when I hear his stuff. And I guess it's the same a little bit with me. I mean, Gabriel is a bit more minimal, but just the way he thinks about music is just so different to the progressive house thing. I mean, the thing about progressive house is I started with that. That's what really got me into this. So that's in that there's some elements of that with what I'm doing, but I'm also conscious that I got very bored of it in the 2001 to 2005. The other thing is it's just like a label, isn't it? That just a lot of things get lumped into, but it's kind of become a scene of its own where a lot of the producers I feel are making music with certain DJs in mind, and that limits, I think, some of the creativity of it. So you've got a similar kind of percussion, and it works. This is the thing; it does work. Like, and the parties are always really good. The progressive parties, they're better oftentimes than some of the techno parties. They're not as creative musically for me, but vibes wise, they're often really, really good. And I think that's the case with the older crowd as well, who kind of a little bit less posy and are more out to have a dance. You know, like I've noticed that pattern. So there's a lot. I still am interested in progressive house, and there's certain tracks that come out from that world that I really love. But there is the thing where I get the feeling I've heard it before sometimes, and even though they can be really good DJ tools, I'm not really so interested to be influenced by that. So I don't listen to too much of it because I don't want to have that as my kind of musical influence when I'm making stuff. It's kind of already been done, and I guess I'm trying to take risks, but also at the same time keep something that's like that can work on a dance floor, that's playable, listenable, etc., etc. So that's what I'm trying to do with Zero9. And with Gabriel's EP, it's a bit of curveball in the sense there's like a down tempo track number 1 called Pluto, and I love that track. I mean, I can listen to that track on loop, and I just love it. It's just something about the vibes of that track. And then there's a more clubby one, and then he did a breaksy one at the end, which was quite popular on the promo Reset. Mine is going to be my next one is like a breaks track and then 2 club tracks, and his next one I think is going to be a bit more 4/4. So yeah, it's meant to be a platform. It's not just supposed to be a dumping ground for the tracks that don't get signed elsewhere. It's now my primary place to release. And I haven't sent much music to other labels. Mark has actually been asking me for some stuff, and he's interested in a couple, which I kind of had dismissed, and he's got me confused. I'm now sort of thinking, well, maybe there's something in them, because he picks really well. You know, if I send him a playlist and he picks the tracks out, oftentimes I'm like, really, those ones? And then they turn out to be the ones that do the best. So he's good at reading that stuff, but probably better than me. Whereas I'm just good at, I know what I love when I hear it, but it's not necessarily the one that's going to do commercially the best. So I might release on other labels, but Zero9 is going to be hopefully where I put my main body of work from here. At least that's the idea.
What inspires you, like in life and musically?
Well, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because I come into this same space. I come in here very early in the morning, and the inspiration tends to come from just starting and playing around, and then suddenly I hear a sound, and that transports me into like a certain situation, like in the imagination, and that could be like some foggy memory of being in a club, like in Brighton. There's a club down there, Concord or something, and I remember there was one night, and that one keeps coming back into my mind. It's just like a fragment of the night where I remember certain lights and a certain vibe, and just like the sea of faces and stuff, and a certain sound and a kind of white noise. You know, just little memories like that from down the years, as I'm in combination with like making a certain sound, will like trigger like a chain of inspirations, you know. So it'll be like, okay, yeah, let's just, and then it just starts to come more naturally, and then just start building things and trying some melodies, just going with the first thing that comes out, not like overthinking it. And then yeah, it's like it sort of snowballs from there. But that initial spark is normally kind of self-generated from trying something. Another place it can come from is, I mean, it sounds crazy, but sometimes if I'm scrolling Instagram or YouTube or something, I'll just see a footage of someone playing something. It might even be from the past. And it's not, sometimes it's not even necessarily the song. It's just like that triggers a memory or something in me. And then it's like, oh yeah, now I've got an idea and I want to go and make it. I mean, I would like to say it's from nature or something, but it kind of isn't. I'm not consciously anyway. So it's normally like the feeling that I had when I was just listening to a song thinking, fucking hell, wow, you know, like 'cause we all have those moments in clubs. And I had some, I couldn't even tell you the songs that were playing. I mean, there's a couple. There's once I was in Bristol, and there was a DJ playing, a friend of mine called Geo, and he was playing, and he played like a sequence of tracks that just stuck with me. And another guy down there, and those moments just stuck with me. And so, yeah, I guess it's just like capturing that feeling, and then once I got that feeling, then that becomes the inspiration.
And what's your studio setup now?
Well, yeah, so I've got like a 101, then behind, I probably won't lift that up, but I've got a Nord. I've got basically a series of hardware synths, Moog, a Juno 106 over there. I just flogged a JP8080 because I couldn't justify keeping it, but I've got a TB303, like the acid machine there. And other than that, it's all inside the computer. So I've got an Audiophile Echo, like a analog inputs sound card with really nice converters. I've always had. When that fucks up, I get another one. I've been using them for the last 10 years, and then I'm using Cubase. So I've got all the stuff routed into Cubase. I've basically got one kick drum basically that I tune and change the length of it. Well, like two or three of them. I'm using like basically some sampled white noise from a synth I used to have there. For most of my drums are like high end drum, high frequency drums. I don't really use loop packs very much, and if I do, it's like normally taking a fragment out of it rather than that kind of style of production where you just pick in from a loop pack and line. And I know there's some ghost producers that do that sort of copy and paste cookie cutter type production. I'm not into that at all. Don't like that vibe. Maybe there's a way to creatively do it, but I find you can express yourself better if you've got like individual sounds and you can have a control in the sampler or in the on the machines themselves of the envelope and the length and the kind of volume and all that stuff. So yeah, my process is like it starts with the synths without the drums and just sort of making sounds and timbres and atmospheres like that, and then trying to build drum tracks and have club arrangements and stuff like that all over the top of it. I mean, I love doing this shit, you know, even the days when the stuff isn't very good, because not every day is a good track, and some days I just get nowhere. But like I'm still happy to do it because I know that that's one step closer to the day when something does happen. Do you know what I mean? You don't have infinite like no end product days, but you don't also have infinite like hitting gold days, you know. So you just, as long as you know that as a producer, it just begets, and you make a habit of it, you can get quite a lot done with just like an hour a day. This is the thing I'm trying to communicate with. Some people have this idea that you've got to sit there in the studio for 10 hours. After
Like
2 hours, you're not productive. You can't do anything
yeah,
because your
like
ears are,
like some want to do 9 to 5, and have this schedule, and then they get the writer's block, and then
yeah,
booked for a while.
yeah.
And it's like just do it sporadically. If you feel like you want to go, go.
I
And
had that. I had that same thing where I used to try and sit there for hours, and I feel so stupid now because it took years to figure it out. But I was just doing it at the wrong time of day. Like there's an optimal time when you're most creative, and for most people it's the night or late at night or very early in the morning. It's not like 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon when you've got a kid in the other room screaming and you've got like an anxiety thing going on that you should be helping your partner or cooking, or do you know what I mean? You're never going to make good music in that situation. But if you wake up at like 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., half asleep, or you get up in the middle of the night and just half asleep, come in and just do something. But I guess there's that period at the beginning where you're learning that can benefit from some more intense, like 2 3 hour periods. But I've seen people make enormous progress just in a year of just applying themselves at it. But you've got to be consistent. That's the thing.
do you feel like sometimes you make happy mistakes that work?
Yes.
Like in the beginning, it doesn't sound okay, but you go away and then you come back and you listen to it again and you're like, okay, now I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I also find that when I have those things where it's like something didn't feel right, I come back, and Mark also has this, interestingly. We talked about this, where you listen to it and it just suddenly it becomes clear what's wrong. And what's wrong often is there's just too many other sounds that shouldn't be there that you've just like got. you can get this habituation, I call it, where you just get so used to a sound, you just assume that it needs to be there, but it doesn't. And sometimes you just mute certain things and leave certain things, and you just strip it down to its essence, then delete the other shit if it doesn't sound good when you put it back in, and then just start building up from there. And you can like restart the inspiration for almost how it was before you lost it. But sometimes the longer you like do that flogging the horse, sitting there for hours now, like the people who spend 9 to 5, you turn up there at 9, you're struggling, you're not really into what you're doing, you're trying to force it. By 5, what you've done is like you've made it so that to come back to that idea, you've got to leave it even longer because you've just blasted the same shit into your ears for like too many hours. So instead of like a week, you're probably going to have to leave it 3 weeks because it's just going to still keep going around your head. And that's really counterproductive. And the way I've countered that is to do shorter sessions where you like really properly fully into it for a shorter period of time. And that can be 45 minutes, as short as that.
Well, I my little one, my 7-year-old, it's kind of like this. She's getting ready to do like a song and dance on stage, but I've been hearing the same fucking song for the longest time. I'm just like, let's just get to the stage part because I'm sick of fucking hearing it. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, God bless her. I love like listening to it, but it's kind of that's kind of an analogy of that. I'm just
Yeah.
like I'm sick of hearing it. I want to hear the end product already.
Yeah.
You know, God bless her. But yeah, it's tough. You know, I mean, I have a lot of mates that produce and they get frustrated because it's not happening for them. And I'm like, just take your time, just go back, go to the pub, or go for a walk and then come back with a fresh mind. Because
Mm.
I think if you try and keep on pushing and pushing, it's not going to work.
I think about this a lot, because I had this problem and I've cracked that problem and I'm trying to find a way to articulate it, and it's just amazingly hard. But it is about somehow lowering the importance of reaching an end product with what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? And like getting to a point of accepting if you make something that's just not playable, isn't doesn't fit the vision of what you started with, so you lose like this thing of having a set vision of where you want to go. Because remember, I always have this thing, I think a lot of people have this thing, right, where they want to make an absolute bang. It's got to be a big tune, like an A side track. And sometimes all that's necessary is just to go and make anything and finish it and just go roll with it, and then move on to the next one, and then move on to the next one. And people think, oh, that's just churning stuff out. Well, actually, it isn't, because what happens is after you've done, say, 5 or 6 of them, suddenly one just stands up above all the others. And if you'd have just been polishing one idea or just going around trying to make that one idea better, you'd never have got to that point. Do you know what I mean? And I'm going to try and find a way to articulate that better. But yeah, I think a lot of producers don't get to their best work because they're too busy on like trying to make that one track, that one banger at the beginning, when you just need to make just anything, at the beginning, and then just making more and then more and more and more, and keep all the projects. And then even if you've got nothing that you are blown away by after 10, just go back and listen to each one by one, and what you'll find is there's something in some of them that you can then bring on. So there is a way, I think, to get out of all of that.
But
Yeah,
at the end of the day, like you said, make the track for yourself, not for somebody else.
yeah, yeah,
That's
definitely.
that's. I've always felt like for me, music has to have heart and soul, and it has to move me emotionally. Uh,
Mm,
and that's every genre of music, rock, indie, country, whatever. It's got to move me. If it doesn't move me, then it's not for me.
mm.
I've always stood by that. Um, any upcoming releases?
Um, I've just had a remix out with Plastic Fantastic.
Yes,
Um,
brilliant, by the way. And I'm so happy that Enzo has got Plastic Fantastic back out there because I used to buy everything from that label and
yeah, yeah,
Plastic
yeah,
Heads, but it's just, I mean, Cortona, it's just like gold dust right now. Like
yeah.
everything he's doing is just brilliant. Every record on there, the artist on there, your remix of Wah Wah.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, it didn't take that long to do, and at the time, I was the first. I think Enzo, he's basically said, send us the raw idea so we know that it's worth like spending the time finishing it. And I thought, okay, this is an opportunity to try and do something that's a little bit more progressive because it's more of a progressive house label, but still do my thing. So it's just like an amazing opportunity. Also, Plastic Fantastic was a shop I used to go to, and he's done a really good job with that label because they're like up there now. They're really established, and they're like one of the ones that's always going top 10 in progressive. And yeah, he knows what he's doing, man. I mean, he ran that record shop, and for years, man, in Covent. Did you ever go to that shop in Covent Garden? Did you ever go
Yeah,
to Plastic Fantastic?
yeah. I told him when I had him on, I was like, I spent probably way too much money. I mean, from Liverpool, mine was three beat, or I go to
Yeah,
Eastern Bloc in Manchester. But
yeah.
whenever I was up, down in London, I'd go to Plastic and yeah, spend way too much money.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, I used to go there, and if I couldn't get what I wanted there, or I'd get what I wanted there, I'd then go to HMV because HMV for a while
Yeah,
had a good they had a
oh,
good buyer in there, but then that went, yeah, they lost it. But there was a phase where they had really good stuff in there. HMV on Oxford Street. But yeah, yeah, I mean they're doing a great job. So after that, there's I've got an EP on the 9th of November on Zero9, like a three tracker with collaboration, well, vocal tracks with Asin, who I did one with a few years ago on Celador called Act of Resistance. So I'm with her again on a track called Dream Sequence. Another one with an Israeli singer called Lawyer called Touch the Sun. That's more of a collaborative thing because he helped. We worked together on the actual arrangement and music. Really interesting process. He like doesn't just do electronic music. That guy, really talented guy. And then a third track with Leo Wood, a British singer from sort of Bristol way, really soulful voice. She's done some drum and bass, housey stuff, some prog stuff as well. Yeah, a track called Fire and Smoke. So yeah, that three tracker, November 9th. And yeah, I'll add you to the promo list if you want. Send us your
yeah, of course. Love. I'm on Steve Parry's SM SMP3, I think. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, SMP3.
Yeah, it's just great, you know. It's great to get good music these days, you know. As sifting through B ports is just a big, massive pain in my arse.
Yeah.
Because
It's not a very it's not an efficient way to find music.
no, I mean, again, you know, I harp on back in the day, you know, uh, meeting at a record shop. It was more than just buying records. It was meeting mates. It was meeting new friends that, you know, you kind of all were into what was happening at the time, and that's heart and soul for me.
Mm,
And getting on Beatport is soulless. It really
mm,
is. You know, click a button, listen for 20 seconds, next. You know, I could be on there for hours and I won't find anything.
mm.
But it's so the genres are so messed up. I mean, I could go in prog house and a lot of it's EDM, and I
Yeah.
melodic house and a lot of it's like techno based. Then breaks, I find more breaks in electronica
Yeah.
in break.
These labels are do my head in because just they're just putting stuff in boxes and it's really frustrating. I know they've got to do it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just the most frustrating. But you know, that's why I like Bandcamp because I go down the rabbit hole on Bandcamp, and you know, for anybody then that listens to James, he's got his James Harcourt dot bandcamp.com, which you need to put some more stuff up there, mate.
I know. I was just using it at the minute for the like older stuff, but yeah, I mean Zero 9's got a Bandcamp, so all that stuff's coming onto Zero 9. But yeah, the catalog in between time, like I'm not sure I can do it. The stuff on other labels, but what I was going to say was discovering new music. One way that it's not a very efficient way again, but it's a really effective way is if I go to sleep and I've got Spotify playing on my phone, you just let it work its way through its algorithm, picking up other tracks, however it does it. And I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll be hearing a track, and more often than not, it's something I absolutely love. And then I'll look at it, I'll go, oh, fucking hell, who's this? and then I'll look up that artist, and it's like I've just discovered another amazing artist who no one's ever heard of. There's so many artists out there who people just haven't heard of who are just amazing. This is the thing, and when you travel, you sometimes see them playing, and you're like, fucking hell, why does no one know about you? So yeah, I feel confident there's a lot of great music out there, but Beatport I don't think is a very efficient way to find it because the amount of stuff that comes out is just hard to. You have to listen, sift through so much. It's just not going to work out that well. Whereas with Spotify, even though it's like this algorithm that tries to pick stuff that's in a similar vein, I guess it works out like the track you've just listened to, what have other listeners that have listened to that also liked? If you see what I mean? So then it just tries to pick stuff. So at least it's having some go at trying to find you the appropriate next track. Whereas if you just go down the list of new releases, it's just, yeah, random.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. A lot of good music is falling through the cracks.
Mm.
You know,
Because it's not discoverable. That's the thing. It's not discoverable. Like if you send out in-flight promos, some people listen, but I mean, even I'm really behind on it because you just get drowned in them, and it's just you need time. I'm not one of these people who can just skip and play like 10 seconds in the middle and know if I like. I need to hear the whole thing and how does it make you feel from start to finish. And if like 90% of them are making you feel nothing, then you lose the inspiration to keep listening to the rest of it, and so you're going to miss it. So there needs to be some sort of curation. And that's the closest thing I've got is the Spotify algorithm at the minute, but that's only giving you released music. That's the other thing. So with I almost need that algorithm within. I need something to listen to all my in-flight promos and pick out the stuff. Not a person that I pay, but like something that I can just write. Maybe I'll try and code something up to give myself like some help. Other than that, you just need a load of time.
yeah, which especially with when you have a family, you don't have too much time to
No,
like for me, go in the little cave and search music. But I again, I get a lot of good music sent from all the people I've had on as guests. So it's just great, I'll spend, okay, this week I'm gonna check this out. Next week I'll check those out. So yeah, it's like I always say at the end of my podcast is go search out new music, but also go search out older music, like stuff
mm,
from 25, 30 years ago. That's
yeah,
that's been brought out, and some of these DJs are playing. These younger kids are thinking it's brand new music.
yeah,
The production levels back still 30 years ago was still way ahead of their time. You know,
yeah,
so it's great to see. But James, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, mate.
yeah. Thanks for having us on.
Talking about footy and music. I will say I hope your team comes second again.
Yeah,
Just
I'm telling you, I've never been that confident, but this year I'm feeling like there's a chance we're going to come first or second. I won't say which. Don't want to jinx it, but I think it'll
yeah,
be close this year. I think we'll run closer.
I think you kind of know a little bit better February, March.
Yeah,
So I'm sure I'll be messaging you in February, March, and seeing where seeing where both teams are.
seeing where we are. Yeah, yeah,
Absolute pleasure, mate. Please go and check out James's music on whatever format you go to, Spotify, Beatport, Bandcamp, just wherever. It's fantastic music. Take it from me because I love my music. So yeah, but as we live in this crazy world, please look after one another. Tell your family, your mates, you love them. Tell a stranger, how you doing today. It might make their day. But until next time, stay safe. We'll see you later.